Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting event of the Luso American Education Foundation Conference. We're glad to have you on board. Welcome, welcome. And on behalf of the Luso American Education Foundation, on behalf of our sponsors, the Governo da Região Autónoma dos Açores, the Regional Government of the Azores, FLAD, Luso American Development Foundation, the Portugal USA Radio and João Manuel Dias and Televisão Portuguesa da Califórnia. Thank you, João Manuel, for hosting this and also for doing this on live stream as well. Thanks to, of course, the Luso Financial and thanks to, on behalf of PBBI, the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute, hosting today's event and the event all week long. We're glad to have all of you here. We will have a moderator, so you won't be hearing from me other than as a panelist, and he's a distinguished moderator that everyone knows, and we will get to that in just a little bit. I wanted to welcome those of you who are following us on Facebook. Those of you following us on the webinar, please remember that you can submit your questions. I will, at one point or another, then get them to you at the end of the questions that we have for the panel, submit them, and I'll get them to José Luís da Silva as well. So we are also on, as I said, Televisão Portuguesa da Califórnia, live streaming. We are on Facebook Live in several different pages. So if you're watching it there, we will try to follow the comments as well. And we will try also to put any questions that you have to our panel. I would like to also introduce to you the chairman of the board of the Luso American Education Foundation, our very good friend. All of us know him quite well for quite a few years. As I mentioned, he founded this conference in the year of 1977. And for those of you who think that's a very long time ago, it indeed is. It's 40, over 40 years ago, but just remember that Eduardo Eusébio was 14 when he started the conference, so he was quite young. He basically started teaching at a very young age. So anyway, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Eduardo Eusébio to give us some enlightening kickoff moments, and then we will turn it over to José Luís da Silva and the panel. Thank you all. This is a very, very exciting event for us, and certainly a very, very exciting group that we have here.
Well, thank you, Denise. And I know that you'll go to heaven, even though you lie a lot, but that's okay. I will take anything as long as you pronounce my right name. Yeah, it's been 40, well, a long time. The first conference was in 1977, and I had the pleasure of being at the first conference. I did not start the conference, though. I will not take that credit. It was a coalition of people, and in particular, a lot of push from the State Department of Education of California and the good friend David Dolson that we all remember, who really encouraged us to have the Portuguese Bilingual Education Conference in San Jose, in San Diego. Anyway, so we've had a conference every year, and this year that was challenging. We were going to probably not have a conference, as you all know, because of all the bad things surrounding us, and particularly, of course, COVID-19. We've canceled Portuguese Day, we canceled all of the hall celebrations, and we were about to probably cancel this conference, and that would be, for us, a tradition that, who knows. So the brains of Denise Borges, he's got a lot of, notice he got a big head, so he got a lot of stuff in there. We got together with the board, and they said, there's this new idea, it's Zoom. I don't think most of us even know what Zoom was at the time, but let's do it. And we can have a virtual conference. So far, it's going really well. I'm sure that will go extremely well through the end of the week. We had the first session yesterday. And gosh, if it wasn't for the interaction and the warmth that we get of meeting each other and hugging each other when the time comes, this probably would be the best way to do things. Again, except for that human thing, that contact that we would miss. Having said that, and not taking any much time with this, I would like to thank you for participating, all of the panelists, and in particular, Denise Borges for taking the leadership and being the chairman of the conference. With this, let's go to work. And I believe our good friend, Jose Luis da Silva, will be the moderator. Thank you, Denise. Thank you all. I'll be with you here on the sidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo, and thanks to all of you. And we will begin shortly. Eduardo said, that first of all, I'm going to take the idea that I have a big head as a compliment somehow. And I am also going to, when he said, it's been going really well, it reminds me, I just had a medical procedure done in my cardiologist about 2 weeks ago. And the next day I had to see him, and I said, "You're a rock star. This is amazing. I feel great." And he says, "Don't applaud me until about 3 months from now. So don't give us any applause until about Monday or Tuesday of next week." Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Jose Luis da Silva, who also needs no introduction. As I said yesterday, it's a lazy way to not introduce someone, but it is indeed true. I think everyone knows Jose Luis. Taught for over 3 decades. I was going to say 3 centuries, but not that long. For 3 decades at San Jose High School, one of the flagships of the Portuguese language programs in California, and been very involved in various associations, and certainly involved in the Luso-American Education Foundation, where he's worn several hats. And so Jose Luis was kind enough to accept this invitation, and he will lead the panel discussion. We're going to try to keep this, if it's okay with everybody, to about 1 hour and 15 minutes or so.
Hi, bom dia a todos. I'm not as old as Eduardo, but I'm almost as old as Eduardo. I've been involved in this conference since the second one, so that's pretty close. We have a wonderful session today. It's about our community, our concerns, our voices. And in this panel, we'll bring together a wonderful group of members of statewide and national organizations, Portuguese and Lusophone organizations, because at the foundation, we have been trying to expand our activities, not just within the Portuguese community, but the Lusophone community. Let me first mention the names of the people in the organizations, and then I'll ask them later on to speak a little bit about themselves and their organizations. We have Joe Machado from the Luso-American Financial, which is the mother organization of the Luso family. We have Angela Costa Simões, representing Palcos, very well known. Corinne Monroy Madruga from the Brotherhood of St. Anthony, or Irmandade de Santo Antônio. From PFSA, Portuguese Fraternal Society of America, we have Monique Kelly-Vallance. And of course, from CPAC, California Portuguese American Coalition, we have our own Denise Borges. Maria Ruiz, whom I know quite well because I've taught Portuguese at a cultural center. She's representing the Macanese community, or the Macaense community, and she's very involved with the Macau Cultural Center and the Lusitano Club. And also my very good friend Valeria Sasser, representing the Brazilian community. She's a member of the Conselho dos Cidadãos Brasileiros, which is an official council of communities attached to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Brazil. Okay, so as you can see, wonderful panel, and we want this discussion to be exciting. We want this discussion to look at where we are in this pandemic and where we're going to go from now, and what's the future of our organizations in our community. So I'd like to get started with Joe Machado, representing Luso-American Financial. As I said, the mother organization of the whole Luso family. Just as a parenthesis, I'd like to say that we are so lucky in our Portuguese community. We have an enviable network of organizations throughout the state. I think very few, if any, community has the kind of network that we have. You go all the way down north and south of California, you're going to find Portuguese organizations, Portuguese halls, and all kinds of very engaged Portuguese American, and Lusophone groups. So, Joe, would you please take a few minutes? Oh, I'd like to ask all of you to limit your comments to 4 or 5 minutes per question, because we don't want this to be too long, because people's attention span now tends to be a little shorter. And we want this to be exciting, to the point. So I would like to ask, the first question I'm going to ask you is to introduce yourselves, basically. It's not really a question. Introduce yourselves and your organization. And please describe your role and your organization's role in the Portuguese or Lusophone community. So your role, and your community's role, your organization's role in the Portuguese Lusophone community. So, Joe, would you please speak about yourself and the Luso American Financial Group?
I'm Joe Machado, and representing Luso American Financial as president of the financial entity, who, as you know, we're divided into the fraternal organization as well as the financial, and strong supporters of the Luso Education Foundation as well. And my role as president, obviously, is to promote and enhance our society. I guess what I would like to do is probably read a little bit about what our mission statement really dictates to us, and and by our mission statement, you'll realize that has, with this pandemic, has realized some restraints in what we can or can't do to accomplish our goals. But basically, our mission statement is being a fraternal provider of affordable and competitive financial protection, retirement options, and the ultimate cultural experience to our members and families. And that's the key right there, that ultimate cultural experience to our membership and to our families. And under this age that we're facing now, it's becoming a little bit more difficult. But anyway, we are the oldest organization in California, fraternal organization, established in San Francisco on August 6, 1968, as the Benevolence Protective Association, and then also became part of the Continental in 1917, as well as, and then I don't know how much history you would like. Anyway, our role is to promote. The key is obviously providing the financial opportunities for our membership and financial health, but also to the cultural piece is critical to our organization.
You're on mute, José Luis.
Okay, I'm on mute. Thank you. Okay, so moving. Thank you very much, Joe. You're right to the point. Very brief.
I can expand further if you would like.
If you want, as long as we stay within the 4 or 5 minutes, that's fine. Okay, and you'll have opportunities to add things as we go too. Okay.
Yeah, I know. If you want a little bit of the history, am I fine or?
That was great. So that was great. I loved it. It was very succinct and very, very apropos. Okay, Angela Costa Simões, representing Palcos. He's the flag representative of Palcos, and I'd like to hear from her and her role and her organization as well.
Sure. Well, first, thank you, José Luis. Thank you, Denise, and the Luso American Education Foundation for inviting Palcos to participate in this virtual conference. We always appreciate the opportunity to talk about our role as a national organization, the only national organization that is advocating on behalf of our community. We're a very different organization. We're not a fraternal or a social club or anything like that. We were founded in 1991 with a specific mission of giving Portuguese Americans across the country a voice on Capitol Hill. Of course, over the last 30 years, our mission has grown and evolved, but you can think of us as really focusing our efforts in 3 key areas. That's advocacy, leadership, and community. And what does that mean? Advocacy is government relations, working, even international relations, so working with the US Congress and the Senate and other government agencies, making sure that they are aware of the issues of importance to our community, such as Portuguese language instruction, making sure that our language programs have the adequate amount of funding, making sure that Portugal remains part of the visa waiver program, lots of things like this. Leadership. So many of you probably have seen that we have a gala, but it goes where we recognize community leaders as well as people at the national level who have really made a name for themselves. But we are really expanding this to drive youth leadership and creating some programs to provide workshops and educational opportunities, whether that's scholarships, internships in Portugal over the summer, and other types of workshops where young leaders can come and enhance their skills in any industry that they're interested in. And so we are really focusing our efforts on youth empowerment and youth leadership in that regard. And then community, you can think of us in two ways around community. We are sort of the de facto source of information about the national Portuguese community. If you ever have a question about whether it's population, whether it's number of Portuguese-owned businesses, whether it's how many educational programs are there throughout the country for Portuguese, whether it's how many government officials, elected officials, both and appointed, are Portuguese. We have been spending years building these databases of information so that when we have these questions and we need this data to make a case for why we need to have Portuguese language instruction, or why the constituents in a particular district need to be listened to because there's a large Portuguese population there. We are the de facto source of information about the Portuguese community. We also run the only national survey of Portuguese Americans called the PALCUS Annual Index Survey. We are about to publish the second survey results in another week or two, but the first survey really helped to drive our national conference that we had 2 years ago and continues to drive our agenda today, because that survey clearly told us that the community cares about 4 key things. They care about language, the Portuguese language. They care about having better representation at all levels of government, local, state, federal. The community very much feels that we need more people of Portuguese heritage in elected and appointed positions. The health of our community in terms of organization health, that we maintain our activities and we maintain our cultural activities. And so this is where a lot of the partnerships come about. And then very much related to that one was maintaining the cultural aspect and introducing new things to the community. And so, with this discussion, I'm really hoping that we can convey the message to anybody that's involved with organizations out there to, this is a great opportunity for us to survey our memberships of all of our various organizations to say, what is it that you would like to see from us? Times are changing. The needs of our community are changing. And so how can we evolve our organizations to better meet the needs of our community? Is that, offering more services for families, lots of young working families that want to stay involved, but it's very hard because they don't have the time. Other new fun cultural events around art or wine or food, things like that. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to really seek out feedback from our membership to drive our organizations forward. So I look forward to the conversation, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Angela. How's your camping trip, by the way?
Yes, as you can see, I'm doing this call from my car. We are camping. So luckily there's Wi-Fi here, but it's going well. It's going well.
It's good.
And then
Okay.
one thing I forgot to add is I'm 3rd generation Portuguese American. So, there might be some misconception that, you have to be an immigrant or 1st generation in order to be involved. And you absolutely don't. So, my family has been involved in the community my entire life. My daughter will be involved in the community because she won't have a choice. I'm going to make her involved. So I'm 3rd generation, originally from Sacramento, and now live in the Bay Area. And so anybody can get involved. They just have to have the desire.
Thank you, Angela. Representing another statewide organization, the Brotherhood of St. Anthony, or the Irmandad Santo Antonio, we have Corinne Monroy-Madruga.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Corinne Madruga Monroy. I live in San Diego, was born and raised here. My grandparents immigrated to the East Coast in 1925 from the Azores, from the island of Pico. They eventually came to San Diego in 1936, and here they stayed. I'm very pleased to be the Grand President of the Portuguese, the Brotherhood of St. Anthony. And as my role, I'll tell you a little bit about St. Anthony. They were organized in 1902 in Santa Clara to promote social and development and ethics of its members. Every August, we celebrate the Feast of St. Anthony with some type of celebration, usually a festa or some kind of a mass or combination of both. That is the main focus of our yearly event that we have. We also have a convention every year to pick our grand officers of the state. From the members throughout all of California, we have about 15 active councils from San Diego all the way to Arcata and in the Valley and all in between, Bay Area. The members in their local councils are responsible for doing, they have monthly meetings, get-togethers, they do a lot of charity work. They help promote their local cities by having events in good faith and friendships. And they also are there to help the ill and those who are in need. And we also, every year, we have scholarships that we give out to graduating seniors. And basically, it's getting our members together and promoting the good of the society and promoting St. Anthony. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monique. Representing PFSA, Portuguese Fraternal Society of America, we have Monique Kelly-Vallance.
Hi, good morning. First, I'd like to thank the PBBI and Luso American for having this conference because it's so important and for inviting us to be a part of it. My name is Monique Kelly-Vallance. I'm the Supreme President of the Portuguese Fraternal Society of America. We were established in 1880 under the organization of the União Portuguesa do Estado de California, which is the UPEC. And then in 2010, we had a merger of the UPEC, the UPPEC, the SCS, and the IDS. And that's when we became the Portuguese Fraternal Society of America. They called us the Portuguese Miracle at the time because never had 4 fraternal societies joined together and actually made a successful merger, especially Portuguese people. So it's amazing. We're all still together. So we're also a fraternal benefit society like Luso is. And you know, our mission when we first started was to protect our members. And that has always been our #1 goal. You know, in the 1800s, we didn't have Social Security. We didn't have some of the protections that we have today. So Portuguese immigrants really needed some kind of way to protect themselves and each other when there was a death in the family or some other type of catastrophe. And so obviously we're not as needed in that aspect anymore. We still offer all of those things, but we have now also merged to be more of we have a social side as well, our fraternal side with our different councils. And our focus is to help promote the Portuguese culture. We've been really trying to help support the Portuguese community as well, like PALCUS, and we've actually worked with PALCUS on a few different projects. But we realize that we're all in this together and that, you know, we can't be one by ourselves anymore. And so if we work together, then we can try to help the whole community strengthen as a whole. We also try to help our members to, we encourage them to focus on volunteering and charity as well. So we want them to be a member, not only to help promote our Portuguese community, but to also be an asset and a benefit to the community at large. So they do lots of different volunteering and charity drives for not only Portuguese organizations and in our Portuguese community, but also their local communities, which we're really proud of. So I think in the new millennium, we're also trying to find our way and find out what young people want. We're kind of in this transition area where it's like we can't continue with the old, but we need to keep some of our traditions. So we're figuring it out. We're getting there. And like Angela said, you know, I'm half Portuguese. My mom is from São Jorge. And so you don't have to be full-blooded Portuguese. Or even my husband was a 2030s president of PFSA, and he's not Portuguese at all. He's adopted. So we're trying to make it so that anyone can be Portuguese, and our society is more about celebrating being Portuguese and celebrating the Portuguese culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. The next person does not require any introduction. He's a driving force behind this conference, Denise Borges, representing here the CPAC, California Portuguese American Coalition.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Luis. And obviously, it's a pleasure and happy to participate on behalf of CPAC. For full transparency, I should also say that we have two other members on the board here that are representing other organizations. Angela is the chairperson of PALCUS, but is also on the California Portuguese American Coalition board. And so is Valeria, he's also on the California Portuguese American Coalition board. So it's not stacking the cards, it's just happened that way. The California Portuguese American Coalition, real quick, I will do the same thing that Mr. Machado did, and that's read our mission statement, because that's easy and it's short and to the point. So our mission is to unite elected officials and civic leaders in order to facilitate stronger collaboration in the advancement of the interests of the Portuguese American community in California. That's basically it. We founded 5 years ago, thanks to a grant and the vision of FLAD, the Luso American Development Foundation was behind founding the California Portuguese American Coalition. And in the short time of 5 years, we've basically tried to be a network for the elected officials and be a voice for some of the issues that affect our community, strictly, of course, in the California world, as that's concerned, because PALCUS does that at a national level and very well. And so the California Portuguese American Coalition, what do we do? Well, basically, we establish these networks with the elected officials. As I believe Angela was the one that said that we need to get more elected officials on the national level. We certainly do to get quite a bit more in California, although we are happy with some of the numbers that we have. And I'd like to just share that with you real quick as an introduction. Right now, our best known factor is that we have 149 Portuguese Americans in elected office throughout the state of California. And for the last 3 weeks that we've been doing some work on collecting all the data and making sure the Garcias are Portuguese and not Mexican or Guatemalan, and the Machados are Portuguese and not, another nationality as well. We have verified 111 Portuguese Americans who are running for office for this election in California, all the way from 3 running for Congress to 1 running for the Assembly, 2 actually running for the Assembly, to many running for City Council, County Board of Supervisors, and lots of them running for things that some people don't think are important, but they are the bread and butter of local communities, and that is school boards. We mentioned the Portuguese language, school boards, water boards, which people on the East Coast can't figure that one out, but it's very important in California. Water boards, you control a lot of things in water boards, especially in the Central Valley, and also things like safety boards, fire boards. All of these things are elected officials, and they have a local voice. And so we have 111. The California Portuguese American Coalition has also had to make some very drastic changes. We had a conference planned, a leadership academy, more than a conference, for August of this year, where we were going to ask partnerships of the lots of you that are on this panel right now. And it didn't happen because obviously of the pandemic. We have a very strong working relationship with PBBI at Fresno State for many reasons, but we also have a good relationship, obviously, with Luso American Education Foundation, with PALCUS, definitely a lot of projects that we've done together. And we've gotten, collaboration and help from different organizations throughout the state, including a grant from the Portuguese Fraternal Society of America, PFSA, last year, which we appreciate. And so that's what we do. It's more of a political organization. When I mean political, the word political has such a negative connotation. It shouldn't, because the world is very political, whether we like it or not. We are not partisan, okay? We are nonpartisan. We want Portuguese Americans. If it's a Democratic district, let's get a Democrat to run. If it's a Republican district, let's get a Republican to run. So the idea is to get a Portuguese American to run for office. And a lot of these 111 that I mentioned to you, they're nonpartisan office. People don't run for a water board in a partisan. There may be party politics, but they don't run with on the Republican or a Democratic ticket. Okay, they don't run for city council. Lots of cities in America, small and medium cities, with a party affiliation. Same thing for school boards. So the idea is to get more Portuguese Americans elected. Thank you so much.
Got this. And now representing the Macanese community, or Macaense community, involved with the Macau Cultural Center and Lusitano Club, Maria Ruiz.
Good morning. First, congratulations on this 45th Education Conference, and thank you for including me on this panel. Well, I'm Macanese, a mix of Portuguese and Chinese descent from Macau, and hold both Portuguese and American citizenship. I've been actively involved with the Macanese community ever since I was a kid, as my father was very patriotic and passionate of his Portuguese origin and was actively involved in many Portuguese and Macanese organizations and instilled in me its importance. Well, I went to a Portuguese school at Escola Simões in Hong Kong for the first 8 years of my schooling before my family immigrated to the United States. I've been actively on the board of the Lusitano Club, one of the 3 major Macau organizations in California, for the last 3 decades, and I'm currently the president of the Macau Cultural Center in Fremont, California, where we own a building with funds given by the Portuguese government in Macau before its handover in 1999. I'm also one of the 6 members of the Conselho das Comunidades Macienses in California that represent the 13 casas de Macau worldwide. Well, our club mission is to preserve the history, culture, and heritage of the descendants of Portuguese people of the Far East, known as the Macienses, to educate its members in Portuguese history, language, literature, art, music, and cuisine as they developed in the mother country and elsewhere in the world where the Portuguese established a presence. We host many cultural and social events annually, including Portuguese and Mandarin classes, cooking classes, and activities with similar groups regionally and globally. We work and get along very well with many other Portuguese organizations, especially the Portuguese Historical Society and Luso-American Education Foundation, both of which I'm honored to be on their respective boards also. We publish a quarterly Lusitano bulletin to promote awareness and appreciation of our cultural legacy for the enrichment and enjoyment of our members and the community at large. And for those of you that are not familiar with Macau, Macau was the first and last Portuguese colony in China from 1557 to 1999 for nearly 450 years before it was handed back to China on December 20th, 1999. Well, Portugal has long been trading in China, Japan, and Taiwan in the early 1500s before Macau was given to the Portuguese in 1557. China has always wanted to learn from the West, and Portugal has indeed made a big impact shaping the East meets West culture, which makes Macau so unique until today. With the Portuguese influence and trading to nearby Hong Kong and Shanghai with a growing Portuguese community, the first Portuguese Macau club, named Lusitano Club, was established in Hong Kong in 1866 and Shanghai in 1911, and soon all over the world in the mid to late 1900s as the Portuguese community migrated all over the world. Currently, there are 13 such casas de Macau worldwide in Australia, Brazil, Canada, Hong Kong, Portugal, United Kingdom, and in the United States, including ours. Thank you.
Obrigado, Maria. And the last panel member representing the Brazilian community, she's a member of the Conselho dos Cidadãos Brasileiros, Valeria Sasser.
Muito obrigada. Thank you, José Luis, and thank you, Denise, for the invitation to participate in this conference, which I like very much. I've been in previous editions, and I love to see the communities coming together. I am part of, as José Luis said, a member of the Brazilian Citizen Council, and for the lack of a trustworthy and worldwide council we used to have, like the Conselho das Comunidades Portuguesas, we no longer have since the new administration, federal administration, started 1 year and 90 months ago in Brazil. So we are now working locally. I've been working with the Brazil for and with the Brazilian community since 2007 in California, since 2001. And now we've been concentrating our efforts in having Brazilians running for office in the United States. I've been working with the Brazilian community in Boston, who has been very advanced on all of that, all the efforts to have people in office, in working with where they live, to promote the quality of living and being integrated where they live without stopping being Brazilian. They should not stop being Brazilian on that, Brazilians. I'm a bit nervous, sorry. And I am very happy that we have established this connection with the Portuguese community several years ago, because you have an organized way of approaching problems and seeing things and conduct the community works that we do not have yet. So we have the energy, the Brazilians and the Portuguese have big organizations, but we find this, I also have been finding a similar problem. It's how to involve the younger generations in it. How can we bring young people, make them interested and in working for a community instead of just themselves? We are 4 million abroad right now, estimated, with 1.5 million in the United States alone. So it's time for us to be together, working for each other and working with other communities to advance everything that we need to do and what we want in the countries where we are living. So this is me, Valeria Sasser.
Obrigado, Valeria. Now that we have met the members of the panel and the organizations, let's get to the really exchange of ideas, because there's a lot for us to talk about. Of course, there's nothing in the world that is more in the minds of people at this moment in the pandemic. So we're going to start by the moment that we are living, this historical moment that we're all facing, the pandemic. I'd like to ask you a two-part question for each one of you. We'll follow the same order. Basically, how has the pandemic affected the community in general? And also, how has your organization adapted in these times of pandemic? So your view of how the pandemic has affected the community and how is your organization handling the pandemic? Let's start with Joe, please.
Yeah, so I'll take it off mute here before I can. Yeah, it's been a challenge. It's been a huge challenge, as it is to everybody else. I mean, obviously, the Luso involvement, especially, with the cultural and trying to incorporate the youth, as we have our performance every year and our youth administration every year at convention, where we have 500 plus youth performing, but that takes a long period of time to develop. They start practicing in March, they start doing all kinds of different things. And so probably the biggest impact has been that social network that the youth have always maintained at their gatherings when they practice their skits or their dance routines or whatever for convention. So that's been a huge part that's been missing this year on that. I mean, Luso had to basically in March send out a notice that we were—
press Uconnect.
Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I didn't know if I was still on. Something happened here.
You're on. No, you're on. You're on.
Okay. So anyway, that's probably been a huge factor with the youth, because in March we canceled the performance of that the performance was not going to happen, and so it set back a lot of youth. They were huge. They were looking forward to it. I mean, they always do, especially the ones that are 18 years old, because they're limited to the age of 18, and that was a huge impact for them. So that was one aspect of it. The other aspect is that you have some of the older members that still look forward to the monthly meetings and fundraisers that we always have in our community. I mean, being part of the fraternal and the charity part of it, there's fundraisers every, I could set my schedule to Luso calendar, and basically every week, every other week, there's a fundraiser for youth activities, youth scholarships, et cetera. So, and that was one aspect that's missed. The other one is the weekly or the monthly meetings that I get back to. Some of the older generations look forward to those meetings. The youth, not as much. I mean, they have their instant messengers. They have their web pages, whatever you want to call it, that they have become much more adapted to. And I commend our youth for doing this. I mean, as far as what they have done, I mean, they've taught us lessons. I mean, they were the first to jump on. They were the first to jump on Zoom. I say our youth. I mean, I should say young youth and younger adults. I mean, they jumped on this network before we even knew what was going on. So a lot of the meetings have become Zoom meetings, but they miss the social interaction. I mean, I'm one of those that I miss. There's some ladies in our organization that for every meeting, they'd have their own specialty item that they would bake and bring to the meeting. I mean, that is something that we miss. So in that aspect, that's how it's changed tremendously. One thing it has done though, is it's taught us, like Zoom, for instance, right now. I mean, we've adapted to Zoom. I mean, on not so much on the fraternal side. Well, we do on the fraternal, but our financial end, I mean, we've done tremendous amount of work via Zoom, which has really revolutionized what we can accomplish that we didn't realize we could accomplish with the new technology that we do have. So those are some of the things that have changed, but it's still, you miss that human interaction that dearly. Going forward, I think that was the second part of the question as well. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, is that nothing, I don't think it'll ever be the same. I mean, it hasn't been the same since 9/11. So I'll see changes coming to our organizations. I mean, we have to be creative on fundraising, et cetera, and community support and what we can or can't do. And that's going to be determined by the extent of the regulations that are imposed upon us. So I don't know if that answered the question that you were looking for, but
yep.
That's my perspective.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, you addressed the topic, which is how is the community being affected right now, and how is your organization dealing with the reality right now? That's a very good answer. Okay, Angela, what about PALCUS?
Sure. So, one thing that we have really observed is that organizations across the country are not able to hold their fundraisers anymore, right? Because we can't have in-person events. And so
we lost Angela.
This is really...
There we go.
Shit.
Incoming call. Stop. Press Uconnect phone button to answer.
Angela, we lost you. Here, you're back. You're back. Okay, go ahead. Okay, you're back.
I'm back. Okay, great. Sorry about that. And so they're not able to hold the fundraisers, but we're ingenious as Portuguese, and we've seen a lot of organizations start to have drive-through fundraisers to pick up sopas, to pick up bifanas, to pick up other types of food. So it's really been encouraging to see the creativity that some organizations have put into thinking, okay, how can we still continue to have fundraisers so that our organizations don't die and, go into debt. And so that's been encouraging. I also have loved to see folks like Jeremiah Duarte Bills or Anselmo Faria that have started to give food demonstrations online, still connecting with their audience and encouraging people to start making new recipes at home. You've seen people like Taylor Amarant start a new show. So there's been so many new online forms of entertainment and education. So for example, the Portuguese Language Academy in New Bedford has been offering free Portuguese language classes. And so it's really been great to see the adaptation and improvisation that our community has gone through. And I hope that a lot of those things will continue on even post-pandemic, because I think they still serve a great purpose for those that can't attend some of those events in general, and it expands their audience. For PALCUS specifically, because we are a national board and we're spread throughout the country, we already were using Zoom for all of our meetings, and we already had webinars that we were doing. It really made us kick into high gear and go full bore on everything that we were doing to go virtual. So we were going to have our gala and national conference in Miami this year. So we canceled that. And while we aren't having a gala and giving awards, we did take our conference and make it virtual. And so for over a course of 2 weeks, we're not only having informational sessions, but we're having a wine tasting virtually. We're having a tasting of conservas virtually. We're having some art gallery online and meet the artist sessions over mixers. And then, Monique had mentioned that we work together. Yeah, we've had some mixers with organizations like PFSA where they bring their members, we bring our community. And so that's been really great. We've even recruited some virtual interns to help us improve our following on Instagram and Facebook and other, do research for our various databases and that sort of thing. And so it's even allowed us to not halt the educational programs. We've just taken them virtual. And what student isn't going to love being able to get credit for work they're doing that they can do from their couch? So it's still an internship. It's still something they're going to get credit for in school, and it's still something they can put on their resume. And at the same time, it's helping us improve our overall reach and presence online. The regular course of business is really unchanged for us because, like I said, we had always been doing Zoom and having calls, whether it's with, folks on the Hill or folks in other agencies or anything like that, because I'm out here in California, I can't go to Capitol Hill. And as chair, I'm doing most of those meetings. So that aspect hasn't changed. It's reaching the community and those kinds of things that we have really put a lot more resources into.
Thank you, Angela. Corinne from the Irmandad Sant Antonio.
Thank you. We have the same difficulties, obvious. Everyone is affected by the pandemic. Ours especially because our society is social. And all the members are elderly. And of course, they're afraid to go out. They're used to going to their monthly meetings, their little luncheons, their festas, whatever it is in their little towns. And because of the pandemic, they're not leaving their houses. I've talked to a few of them and they're disappointed because I was coming to visit their councils in the past, April and May and June. And of course I wasn't able to go. And then should we schedule it and should we not? And the communication back and forth and worrying about it. They're very anxious. It's an anxious time for the elderly in our society. And because the majority of our members are elderly, it's a tough situation. We did have one good come out. In August, I was telling you, we celebrate the Feast of St. Anthony, and our Santa Clara Council #1 had this big ordeal planned, big festa, bands, everything, queens, thousands of people attending. And of course it was canceled, but in still celebrating, the council wanted to do something. So they had on August 9th, they got permission from the Santa Clara, and they were only allowed to have 60 people. And so we still had the celebration for this year. We had 60 people. We had social distancing in effect. We had to sign in. They needed our phone number. We had a mass outside. We had food. And it was really, really nice. It brought at least those 60 people in that area together to keep the traditions alive and keep everything going. As in the Brotherhood of St. Anthony. And it was a fabulous affair. Granted, everyone couldn't participate, but for the people that were able to attend, it was fabulous.
Jean-Louis, if I could, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I forgot to mention some of the COVID specific campaigns that we ran nationally. And in fact, Corinne, I would love to speak with you about working together on one of these, since you have such a large elderly membership. We started Support Our Elders campaign, where we were actually raising funds to provide meals to the elderly in our community. And we worked with Poço and Valer in California specifically, and then the Immigrants Assistance Center and MAPS on the East Coast, because these are organizations that are already feeding our seniors, taking care of them, doing well checks via phone. They're already doing a great job. And so we wanted to help them, give them more resources. So it's a fundraising campaign. It's still going on. And so if you'd like to donate and Corinne, perhaps we can get your organization involved so that we can get some donations to your organizations to help provide meals to the elderly. The other one was our a heroes campaign, Our Heroes, where we highlighted people that are working on the front lines from day one. Nurses, firefighters, public safety workers, police officers, people that work at grocery stores, teachers. I mean, anybody that wasn't sheltered in place, that they had to keep going to work. We have been highlighting them on our social media pages, and that's really resonated with the community because it's oftentimes those are thankless jobs, and people really appreciated that they were being recognized for the work that they were doing. And then finally, we had support Portuguese businesses as a campaign, because there were some businesses, especially restaurants, that were still providing takeout. They hadn't closed down completely. And so we wanted to make sure that people were aware of all of those businesses that were doing that, and to patronize those businesses, instead of just calling DoorDash, call your local Portuguese restaurant and order, dinner, order lunch, that sort of thing. So we saw an opportunity to do very specific things. How do we help our community through this pandemic? And how do we do that virtually? And how do we do that nationally? And those were the things that we came up with. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of those 3 campaigns.
Thank you, Angela and Corinne. And now from PFSA, Monique Valance.
Okay, so, obviously the pandemic has affected all of us. We've all talked about how we don't have our festas anymore. Right now, we're not having different activities that we're normally having. And I'm always hearing people saying, oh, I miss going to the festa, I miss all of this. I think it's things we took for granted before. So now we're missing it. But I think there's some positives to what's the current pandemic. One thing that's really, I was just actually remarking this to my husband this morning, is that it actually gives us, doing this stuff on Zoom and Facebook, it gives us more, it gives people more ability to attend things like this. Like when we have a Facebook conference or Zoom conference, we miss the social aspect of it. I was telling him I love going to conferences because I see people I know and we talk and things like that. And it's always exciting to share ideas. But in some ways, we might have more participation this way, because if someone doesn't have to get up and drive a couple of hours, they might be more willing to just log in on Facebook or Zoom. And so I think that has definitely been a plus. As far as PFSA, obviously, just like Luso and St. Anthony, we had to postpone our convention till next year, which was disappointing for me because it was my convention. But it's still going to be going on. We had to cancel all of our meetings, our official visits. And I think what was so hard for us, at least for me anyway, and I think some of our members felt this way, it just felt so abrupt, because, it's like one day I was going to official visits every single weekend and then nothing. It was just weird. It was like, kind of like the world stopped. And of course, we have, extended a moratorium on meetings and other social gatherings in person, but our members are adapting. We have some councils that are meeting on Zoom, and of course our supreme officers and our board are also meeting on Zoom. It's a challenge for some of our elderly members because, of course, it's very scary. You tell them, hey, why don't you get on Zoom? And they're just like, well, I don't know. No, I don't know how to do this. We'll just wait until we can all meet in person. So that's been a challenge. And we don't really want to encourage elderly people to get together right now. So that's kind of been hard. One thing that they do, though, is that they do Facebook. So we've been doing Facebook challenges. We have a monthly theme, and we're encouraging our members to post pictures of themselves, their families, as a way of just like to keep in contact and keep that connection going until we can actually all get together. So that's it has been a challenge. As Angela mentioned, we've been doing our own happy hours as well on Facebook. On Zoom, and we're developing something. I'm not going to say what it is, but we have something else that we're developing for November that we're going to do on Facebook. So I think, we're trying to get creative, and in a way, it's like this has kind of been like a rebuilding year because we don't have a whole lot of activities going on right now. So this is giving us the opportunity to sort of reimagine what could our society be like. What are the needs of our society, and how can we change things? Because sometimes when you're in the middle of it all, it's really hard to make changes or even think of changes. But when nothing's going on, it kind of gives you that time to sort of try and kind of go back to the drawing board. So I think, it's got its negatives, but it's definitely had some of its positives as well.
Thanks, Monique. Denise Borges with CPAC.
Thank you. Well, we also, I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said because we did a lot of the same things. However, we just moved naturally to online. And so, it allowed us to reach areas, as Monique said, that we wouldn't be able to do in a present situation. One of the things with conferences, including this conference, the Lose American Education Foundation, is getting people to travel to a conference. Is getting people, to go from San Diego to the Valley, or from the Valley to Northern California, or that really extensive trip of, going from the Bay Area to San Diego. So we've moved everything to online, and it allowed us to touch some things that probably we couldn't do in a present situation. For example, we hosted over the summer 3 forums on racism and discrimination. Actually, Dr. Monique Kelly-Vallance participated in one of them. And so we had, we were able to do this, that we wouldn't be able to bring people. The second forum, for example, all of them actually, but the second one had folks from San Diego and San Francisco. It's very hard to host that, and very hard to the logistics and the cost of it. I mean, we just don't have unlimited funds to pay everyone's hotel for a couple of days and everyone's meals and all that kind of stuff. And so it allowed us to touch on an issue that has not been touched in the Portuguese American community, which is racism and discrimination. As one of our panelists said in the last forum, Ashley Fagundes, who is a guiding counselor at Fresno State, she said, I'm elated to participate in this because we are just normally in the Portuguese community, we go to festas, and that's all we do. It's festa, festa, festa. And so this, I think for CPAC, it gave us an opportunity to do, and we're going to continue doing these forums that would be hard to do in a present situation. Some things change. Obviously, we did not have our Day of Portugal event at the state capitol. That's always a fun event that all of you go to and everything else. And so, and it's an opportunity, not just a fun event, it is an important event because you get, legislators to talk about the Portuguese American presence in California and the presence of Portuguese speaking countries in California. And so that is very important. And we couldn't do the recognition because in June, everybody was not thinking, the state legislators had to, and they still have a lot of work to do with budgets and things that are, so it kind of shifted the priorities, a little bit. Some things can be done virtually, but it shifted the priorities. But it also shifted the priorities on CPAC to have dialogues with our elected officials and to talk about things that we prior to the pandemic, we didn't have a voice. So they were able to listen to us on racism and discrimination. They were able to listen to us because I sent on behalf of CPAC some of the work that Angela and the entire board at PALCUS was doing to say, hey, we also need to get some money to our organizations for funding for the elderly. Not everybody is rich in the Portuguese American community, as I say, not everybody's sitting, in a sofa smoking a Cuban cigar, although that's illegal, and having, 150-year-old scotch. So we have issues in the Portuguese American community, and we were able to partner with the other organizations. So, and talk about things, it gave us sometimes a halt in the festas. That's something we'll be talking about tomorrow, but it gave us an opportunity to talk about other things, such as the work that, the PALCUS did, on Listen to the Community about some of the issues that we have with consular services. So it gave us this opportunity to look at some other issues that were being affected by our community and that sometimes we didn't have the time to do. And I just wanted to, and I think I have about a minute left, just to say one quick thing, and that's just to piggyback on what Valeria said. And as we talk about collaborative, because Angela mentioned also that with the Brotherhood of St. Anthony, it'd be great to be a lot more collaborative work with all of our associations. Okay, so we're about 1.5 million, more or less. That's what we think we are in California, and not in California, I wish we were, but in the United States, Portuguese Americans or Americans who claim to be of Portuguese ancestry, whether immigrants, first, second, third, successive generations. Valeria just told us about 1.5 million Brazilians. Yesterday, Mr. De Cruz talked about 30 to 40,000 Macaenses. We know there's hundreds of thousands of Cape Verdeans and from other Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, probably a few 100,000 as well. So all of a sudden, if we, instead of talking about the 1.5 million, if we start unifying our communities, hey, all of a sudden we're over 4 million. That has a little bit more of in a country that prides itself on numbers, okay, and where numbers count. All of a sudden, having 4 to 5 million, because that's what we would be, is a little bit better than 1.5 million. So we need to start building these partnerships as a way to the future.
It's a great point, Denise.
Yeah, obrigado, Denise. I second everything you just said. Representing the Macaense community, Maria Ruiz.
The day-to-day pandemic has definitely changed the way we live across the world, and we have learned to adapt to new ways of doing things. We know it brings a lot of stress, So we have been reaching out to our members on a regular basis by posting on our Facebook page about the well-being of our community, emailing them with information on resources and offering assistance. In addition, we have personally called our older members who do not have access to email to provide the same information and assistance to stay connected. We have also commemorated our students and first responders in our quarterly bulletins, and thankful for digital technology such as Zoom. Our board has been able to discuss ideas and stay engaged with each other. And moving forward, we are just starting to do some Zoom events for our club, such as paint night, and we plan to do other cultural conferences. And eventually, you know, depending on how long this thing is, we might do our Portuguese and Mandarin classes on Zoom. And that's if it's okay with you, Zé Luís. And also, we'll do recording videos that can be shared with the community. And hopefully this way is a good way to connect with other Portuguese groups and societies. Post-pandemic, I believe that members will be enthusiastic about attending events and seeing each other once again, but again, until we are safe. I know we definitely miss each other, the social aspect of seeing each other, us being Portuguese, how we like to hug and kiss. So people miss that. But, you know, we will try to establish a new protocol of additional safety for our member functions going forward. And, you know, it's actually quite good with this virtual technology that now we're all grown to be using. So it's also something that we'll probably think about doing moving forward, where it's harder for people to get together. So with this virtual meetings, we can actually do other events too. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. As you mentioned, refer to Portuguese classes, you know, just for information. I've been teaching Portuguese for a few years now at the Machado Cultural Center. And it's all due to Maria because she's just an energetic person that organizes things so well and makes Portuguese language available to the Macanese community. And to finish this question, we have Valeria representing the Brazilian community.
Lots of what has been said reflects on our community as well. The access to connection via technology and many things, but I would like to highlight a few aspects about the Brazilian community that I don't know if you will find in the same way. First, we access the precariousness of our connections and our community in general, because so many are still not documented in the country. Those jobs went away almost at the same time the shelter in place was established in California, specifically in California, but everywhere in the country. So we are counting to feed these people. All the religious entities in the community stepped up to provide food and everything else. Here in the Bay Area, we do not have a center that is Brazilian community center or Brazilian association of any type that can provide this type of service. So the churches of all types stepped up and are providing food for people that lost their jobs, and there are lots of them. The other part that we started a group, has a Portuguese lady working with us, Margarida Muniz. We started a group about domestic violence several months ago, before the pandemic. However, when the pandemic came and the shelter in place went into effect, the domestic violence was a problem that became very visible and very severe. And we accelerate all that entity was doing. The name is Luana, named after a lady that had suffered and died in the hands of a partner, of her partner in the past. And we are organizing and providing support, access to all the help that are locally to Brazilians and Portuguese who need it, whoever needs it. In Portuguese, if you cannot speak English well, we are providing the support in Portuguese and then directing to what is available in the United States. So in the different locations. So this effort had an immense, we had to put that really fast everything working because this was a big demand during that time. We also felt the Brazilians, because we have no connection with the government right now, and the government was also passing informations that were not appropriate, to say in the proper way. We could not have this support. The consular service went down a little bit, but looks like it's still better than what the Portuguese community was facing. But we have no support of any kind. So all depends really on the communities and the people stepping up in these ways. Of course, the festivals, all the parties we like, Festas Juninas, the Lavagem of Berkeley, which is a wonderful Baiano festival we have here. None of that happened. Everything has been virtual. People, lots of talents are appearing and having great audience during this time online. And we are doing the same that everybody else is doing. So just to make it short.
Obrigado, Valeria. So that you can see the connections here. Valeria, a Brazilian, she together with our friend Tatiana have attended a session at University of the Azores. So our connections in the communities are great. The Macanese community also, a lot of our Portuguese Americans that go to Macau to their encontros and participate in activities. And of course, we've been very lucky to participate in Brazilian activities, including the ones in the Brazilian consulate. Now I'd like you to switch a little bit, kind of following up on this question, but I want to ask all of you to foretell the future, if you will, to give me your opinion. If there is one item that comes up in discussion now among my Portuguese American friends, is what's going to happen to our community post-pandemic. And there are two schools of thought, a pessimistic, everybody's been in reclusion, forced reclusion, people are distant from the community. When this is over, the organizations are not going to be able to really be as strong as before. The other ones, optimists, and I put myself in that group, say, people are so sick and tired of being at home and alone. When this pandemic is over, there's going to be an explosion of participation in the community, kind of renaissance in our community. So briefly, I'd like you to have your opinion on what do you think, your opinion, what do you think is going to happen to our community post-pandemic? Just a quick analysis of the situation, starting with Joe.
Luis, before we
Yes.
before we go to Joe, I
Yeah.
just wanted to mention to all of the folks that are following us on the webinar, especially the participants, there's two excellent questions. So after this kind of looking into the crystal ball, as Luis said, we will take those two questions because they're very pertinent, and I think that we will make time for them. So I just wanted to assure those that were on the chat with their questions that we will answer those. And those of you who are in the chat, if you have any other questions, do so as well. And those of you on Facebook, especially those who are following in my page or the Palcus page or the Luso American page, we're following those questions, pretty much. So go ahead and send us the questions as well. And now my conterrâneo from Praia da Vitória.
José Luis, may I add one thing that I forgot, very important to say?
Yes, Valeria.
We just, because of the pandemic and the shelter in place, our friend Leah Fernandes from UC Davis started a huge and very nice storytelling project online. And the kids are totally connected and having the contact with the language. And I'm very proud to say it has been a much bigger success than what we expected at first. So Tatiana and hers are the masterminds of that.
Great. Well, Leah and Tatiana are great people. So are you. Okay, going to Joe. And what do you see in the crystal ball in the future post-pandemic? How do you think the community is going to act and react?
Oh, I'm forever optimistic. I have not been sheltered in place because of my job requires that I be out and about, and so I have not been constrained as much as other people have. I mean, I get out using all the precautionary efforts, the masks, that you don't shake hands, you don't do the hugging, etc. But it took an adjusting not to shake hands in the business sense. But everybody's been accepting that. But as an eternal optimist, I think that and I see that people want to get together. I mean, we do it within our family. We have gathered, knowing those that have stayed within and not stayed sheltered. And so we've had luncheons within our family, and the desire is there. People want to get out. You know, we are humans, and humans like that touch, feel, you know, the contact, the voice, seeing people. Yeah, Zoom is great. I think the younger generations accept it and embrace it. And there's a lot that we have learned from this pandemic, that things that we can do that, I mean, just accelerated. The web and the technology has accelerated immensely. So for what I classify a little bit older, probably, I don't want to mention any ages, but I mean, our generation, we like that conviver, you know, we enjoy that. Is it going to continue? I think we're going to get a huge outburst when things break loose. Is it going to be the same? No, I think there's precautions that we have to maintain. You know, you're not going to walk into a room with people that you know or have the flu, even though the flu may not be as contagious, but you're still not going to do it. So how are you going to adjust? If, you know, we'll see what happens, but people want to get together. People miss it. It's a social nature of the human.
Thank you, Joe. Angela, what do you see?
Well, you know, a combination of what I see and what I hope to see. So, you know, I think what people have been able to discover, you know, having to do things online, that there are some areas of our community where we need action. And so I hope that we'll see a lot more civic participation in a lot of different areas. So for example, you know, having, you know, bringing back the social and cultural activities are very important, of course, but it goes beyond that. And if we want our community to continue to have the resources that we need, again, for Portuguese language programs, or even for other government resources, you know, the only way that we get those is by demanding them and by asking for them as a community. And so, for example, you know, Denise did mention the consular issues letter, and that is something that we have addressed because, yes, things have gotten worse with the pandemic, which are quite understandable, and it's nationwide. This is not something, you know, to be picking on one particular consulate, but how can we as a community continue to make our voices heard in that regard, and possibly present some solutions, and how can we help make the situation better? There's another issue that has come up. The Portuguese being classified as Hispanic has come up again because of a New York Times article. If this is something that you feel vocal about and passionate about, the only way that things get done and changed is if you get involved and make yourself heard. So, you know, does that mean getting involved in a organization that's working towards that, participating in some research? There are some academic institutions, you know, PALCUS is working on it. There's a lot of different ways to get involved. Funding for Portuguese language programs, that's a constant issue. And many of you may or may not know, but, you know, Portuguese was taken off of the Star Talk list of languages that receive funding from the US government. Why? Portuguese was one of the most popular and successful programs to receive funding. And so, you know, PALCUS is, and also working with CPAC, has been working very diligently to get that turned around. If that's something that you feel is important and you want to see Portuguese language offered in your school, you got to get involved. So what I would like to see is for there to be more action and more involvement from our community. And, you know, as Denise mentioned, this, you know, it is this pandemic and doing things virtually has allowed us, maybe it's given us a little bit more courage or a little bit more, you know, hey, it's about time to have, you know, these tough conversations and address a lot of these issues. But we will never move forward as a community unless we address these things, and not address them in a negative way. It's just addressing them to say,
okay, what's the situation with regards to racism, with regards to how we view the LGBTQ community, how we, address health disparities in the community? How do we address those things, and how do we make them better? How can we bring together coalitions to make them better? And to reiterate again what Denise was saying, and usually Luis, that if we started partnering with other communities like the Brazilians and the Macanhães and the Cape Verdeans and other Lusophone communities, our voice would be much stronger. So what I would love to see is if people take anything from this pandemic and lessons learned, it is that we only see change when we make it happen. And you don't have to be an elected official. You don't have to be president of an organization. You don't have to be somebody on some high pedestal somewhere. It takes everybody at the grassroots level to participate and make your voice heard. So if you want to get involved, if you feel that this is important for our community to continue, then I would say reach out to any of us here on this panel, and we will be able to tell you how to get started and how to get involved, because there's a lot of different ways. So luckily, the political climate, well, although very tense, has also driven people to take action. So that's why I'm feeling a little bit hopeful that we will start to see more people taking action and getting involved in other things, right? And so I'm not sure if that directly answered your question, Zé Luís, but when I think about the future, that's what I think about. Of course, I love going to the festas. Of course, I love going to the social clubs, and I love patronizing Portuguese restaurants where I can. And I absolutely, those need to continue. At the same time, our community for too long has not had a strong enough voice, and we need to really kick that side of things into gear. So and by all of us working together, we can absolutely do that. It's absolutely achievable.
Thanks, more than that. Corinne, that was great. Corinne, how do you see our community and your organization post-pandemic?
Yeah, I actually agree with both Joe and Angela. I'm hopeful for the future of our society by knowing that they've been so confined all of this time. As soon as it gets, as soon as they're allowed to, through the state laws, to be able to socialize again, I think everybody will be willing and ready to go out and participate in all the festas and all the activities that will continue. My visits were canceled for a whole year, but we kept our officers in for the next year. So we have still a whole nother year to continue to do what we were supposed to do this year. And I think by that time, all the members will be ready. I'm just hoping it's short, short and sweet.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Corinne. Monique, PFSA, how do you see the people in PFSA and our community reacting past pandemic?
Well, I think that whoever has the first festa after the pandemic is going to be the biggest festa of the decade. Everybody's going to be dying to get out. I think that in some ways, when coming up to the pandemic, I think we were all so busy, especially our youth. Everybody's got sports and people are running around with their kids and things like that, that I think like it's made people kind of take a breath and realize, at least I hope, was all that really that important? Was it really important to miss, this birthday party, or miss that festa, or miss being with my family because I had to play soccer all year long, or softball, or whatever it is? And not that I have anything against that, so please nobody give me nasty comments, but I feel like people were missing out on those types of activities because they were so busy and so distracted that now that they don't have it and they can't go anywhere, and I think it's people are like reprioritizing their priorities and seeing what's more important. And I think in our society that's going to be that's something that's going to happen. I think that people that sort of took things for granted. I also think that now that we're doing things on Facebook and Zoom and we're kind of reaching out in a different way, we're kind of reaching people that we didn't normally get in contact with because they weren't normally our people that came to our visits or came to the meetings. So I think that's a benefit. And I think that's going to be kind of a trend in our Portuguese community in general. I think that more of these things are going to be available on Zoom and Facebook, which I think is a great idea because as Nick said, I mean, if you're in San Diego, I know that a lot of the folks in San Diego really feel isolated in a lot of ways because so many things happen up here and in the Bay Area, and it's just impossible for them to get up here. So I think that's going to be a real benefit. The hugging and kissing, I think, is going to take a while to come back. You know, even now, if I see people, it's like my first instinct is go and hug and kiss them, but then I'm like, no, wait a minute. And so we're going to get used to that. I think it's going to be a while before we feel comfortable maybe doing that. And I think that maybe masks might become more something we see more often, whereas like not just with COVID, but you know, in general, because I mean, this is something they do in Asia. If you're ill, you wear a mask in order to prevent illness from other people. And so maybe this will help with future flu seasons and things like that. So I'm really hopeful that this is going to have a positive aspect, and that, you know, we're all just going to be so excited to be together. We're going to forget to fight with each other for a little while. So thank you.
Some great points, Monique. Really great.
Thanks, Monique. Denise, pessimist or optimist?
Well, if I may, this is kind of a tough one because I subscribe to the José Saramago theory about what is a pessimist and what is an optimist. He says that a pessimist is an optimist with a strong dose of reality. So I think I'm going to subscribe to that one. In the sense, I don't want to be a pessimist in any way, but I have mixed feelings because of the community that we are, as far as the community that's participating. All of you that, you know, from Joe to Monique and Corinne, especially the three of you, because you're dealing with organizations that have a lot of social events. You know, the meetings are a social event, the lunch or the dinner or the whatever. And so I agree with Monique that the first festival will probably be a success, but I think it will be with a lot of young people, and that's good. I think we have such an older community and the people I've been speaking with, they said, well, they can hold the festival, but I'm not going to it. So, you know, you have those people in a certain age bracket that may be hesitant of getting out of the house. Corinne mentioned that earlier. And so people are aware that this affects a certain age group more than others. And it can be a little bit more dangerous in one age group more than others. And because we are an aging community, especially in some events less than others. But if you go, and we'll be talking about this Tuesday with a panel on folklore, bands and Carnival. But if you go to a Carnival event in February here in California and some of the communities that have it, you know, I like going to them because I feel like I'm the young guy there, you know, and I'm almost 62 years old. And so, but I'm being a little bit facetious, obviously, but it is an older crowd that go to some of our events. And I don't know how these folks will feel as excited as those who are younger about, you know, the hell with it, I'm just going to go to the festa. You know, they may think twice. That's my perspective on that aspect. I do think that what the pandemic has given us is a sense, and I think it's a, you know, paraphrasing someone that said something else on utilizing another scene. A pandemic is for the Portuguese community, in my perspective, a pandemic as such as this one is a terrible thing to waste. And so I think that and that's why I proposed to the almighty chair, Eduardo Eusebio, and all of the board members to do this virtually, because I think we have the opportunity. I saw what we were doing with the racism and discrimination events, and I've been seeing what PALCUS has been doing for the last almost 3 years that I've been on the PALCUS board. And so there's different venues that we can use to discuss and debate and to move forward the community. I think that in a way, if we don't learn from this pandemic, that exactly what Monique said, we're so busy, you know, with going to the next whatever. And by the way, you're going to get a lot of hate mail from the stalker people. But the idea that, you know, we're so busy with, I've said this, I've written about this, as all of you know. I thought we were too busy from going to festa, that we were not concentrating on things that were happening in our community. You know, we end the festa, you know, we say, oh, we had, you know, we used to have 1,000 people, but now we have 450. That's still very good. And we just go to the next one. And so we were very busy on going from event to event. That the pandemic now has given us a sense of reality. I think that it will be fine, obviously, but I do think, as Joe said in the beginning with 9/11, and it can be, this is of course in a different aspect. I don't think we'll be the same community. I don't think I'm not saying this from a pessimistic standpoint. I think we can use that we're not going to be the same community from an optimistic standpoint, for being optimistic about it. We're not going to be the same community. So whether we come back post-pandemic in 4 months or 6 months or a year, let's use the remainder this time to really do some of these things that all of you mentioned one way or another, and to be prepared to be a different community, as Joe said, and I wholeheartedly agree, to be prepared for this different community that we're coming forth, because it will be a different community. We are an older community, and the older community will not be going as easily to these events. And the younger community, we have to cultivate through this via.
Yeah, Liz. Maria Luis, mixing the combined wisdom of Portuguese and the Chinese, how do you foresee the future after this pandemic in our community, in your organization?
Well, I'm definitely an optimist. I know a lot of the people can't wait to get together, and I've received calls when's the next function, they all want to get together. But again, we want to make sure everything is safe. So, we're going to make sure we establish new protocol, additional safety for all member functions, especially when all our organization is actually centered around social events and our interactions. And it looks like, one of the new norms going out will be wearing face masks. Again, I think, we'll just adapt as it goes. But just like Joe said, I think people just can't wait to get out and get together.
Thank you. Last, personally, Valeria, how do you see the Brazilian community post-pandemic and their organization?
I think we are going to have lots of what has been said before. I agree with Denise. It's going to be a different community. We've seen the precariousness of many of our members, which people just ignored before. But on the positive side, and for continuation of everything we do, I think we are going to be, we are identifying new leadership, people that have potential and willing, and those great ideas to continue all the work for all the communities and to collaborate. And they actually have a lot more collaborative mindset than what we've seen before. So I think this will be a great positive when we come out of the pandemic. This pandemic, and lots of needs that we didn't identify before, because we are going from festas to festas a little bit here in this community too. We realized the dark side, so to speak, but what are those deep needs that we didn't attend before? What we were missing, how people are communicating, what they're talking about. And that everything is coming up. It's so many, the information is in such amount that it's hard to process it during this, why we're still doing this by Zoom. We have to calm down and even put more, there will appear, a lot more needs will be apparent when we do this balance of what came out. But I think the most important thing is the new leadership we are identifying right now. And everything else that everybody said applies to my community as well.
That's a great point, Valeria.
Good, Valeria. Before we go to my last question to the panel, Denise has a couple of questions from the audience.
We do, and some excellent questions that I'd like to point. One of them was comparing the 2020 to 2019, and this doesn't affect everybody. So, for example, at CPAC, I'll as members of Congress say, I'll give my time to the honorable gentlemen or the honorable ladies, gentle women. How does this compared to 2019? What is the percentage of fundraising that you have lost? if you compare what you fundraised in 2019 to what you have been able to fundraise right now in 2020 up until September 1st, let's put it that way, because we still have a few months. And some of you, Monique and of course Joe, with with your charitable work, not obviously the business side, but the charitable work that has been done. So as far as CPAC, we don't fundraise in that aspect. So I'm going to, we have, some different funding sources. And so, but for those of you who do that type of work, for your organization, depending on fundraising, we'll start with Angela.
So for us, our major fundraiser is our annual gala. And clearly we're not going to have that. So our fundraising is literally cut in half for the year. And so as a result, we are we've come up with a lot of other ways to bring in funds. We have the ornament fundraiser. We have published an activities book, a Portuguese activities book that you can buy on Amazon. We have, we actually published another book that I wrote personally that the sales go directly towards the scholarship that was established in my son's memory. We are now selling apparel, t-shirts and hats with Make Portuguese Count on them. Also we are starting to form partnerships where, for example, with the wine tasting that we're doing in October, 10% of the proceeds from that tasting will go towards PALCUS. And again, why do all this fundraising? Well, we do have one paid staffer. All the directors, the work that we do is for free. None of us get anything. We don't get reimbursed for travel, for mileage, for hotels, for anything. Even our Zoom subscriptions, we don't get reimbursed for that. And so, but it does take funds to host some of these events. If we are going to send students to Portugal for an internship, housing and everything that is involved with something like that. So we do have, actual costs, and our full annual report on is posted online for everyone to see, because we're completely transparent in that way. But
Angela, is there a percentage? Is it down by 20%, you say, or 10?
Oh, it's 50, at least 50%.
Okay.
If not more, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Anyone else?
Just trying to get creative, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else that's seen? Joe?
Yeah, I think I'm not exactly sure what percentage-wise. Part of our fundraiser is involved with the Education Foundation, and I know that at the convention, there's always the one night that's directed exactly for the foundation. And there's a substantial amount of money that comes in for that. I know that there's some individuals that have donated personally without that fundraising effort. So it's down. How much, I don't know. On a business aspect, it's down considerably, because obviously there's, I should say, insurance-wise, annuities-wise, things are considerably higher. But the insurance aspect, which is not a fundraiser directly, is down. But and I don't know how much percent, not very much, I don't think. It's still continuing going very strong. I am involved in quite a few other organizations. For example, on fundraisers, I cook about 1,000 pounds of beans every year. And directly for whether it's FFA, whether it's 4-H, whether it's youth activities that we're doing. And those are non-existent. So those are things that we would raise anywhere between, not for Luso, but for other organizations. I would say with directly what I'm involved with, well over $110,000, $15,000 a year with my direct involvement in that, but obviously not for Luso. So, but it's still a community effect overall. And that's just myself. You look at other aspects of other organizations, or little bits and pieces of the community. And that's what we're involved with. We're involved with community. And that's just with my local Las Banas community, that amount of money that was not raised for specifically youth. I target the youth because that's what we really push, especially with youth. With Luso, we push youth considerably. and I extend myself into the community, promoting and helping a lot of the other youth fundraisers out there. So I can't speak directly for, yeah, it's down a little bit, but how much, I don't know. But on the ones that I'm directly involved with in my local community, and I'm sure that's translated across the board to other communities similarly.
Anyone else that does fundraisers that might want to?
Let me talk about the Brazilians. In general, we are very suspicious of donating money for anything as a community. We just don't. But we are very good at donating goods and everything else when someone is in dire need. So we had a case of someone that both parents were in the hospital with COVID, and the kid was alone being taken care of by a friend. So there was an outpouring on that in that little community. So we are from the nothing that we used to get before. Now we are totally down to zero and below zero. So I hope this desperation people went through during the COVID change it. I'm really hoping we change it inside as community that for the need that we need to support all these efforts in the future.
Anyone else?
Yes, yeah. Our society hasn't had any fundraisers since COVID started since then, and we do rely on that. If people want to send in donations, like for our scholarship fund is on donations only, and that's how we give out the scholarship money. We just decided we did have a meeting in September, and we decided at our meeting to do a raffle. So we're going to send out the raffle tickets to all our members and sell them in the communities of each where we're located, and then have it in March at our meeting, and that money will go to the scholarship fund.
Monique, what about PFSA?
Well, with PFSA, as Joe mentioned, we don't do fundraisers for PFSA specifically. What we do is every Supreme President generally will pick a charity and raise funds for that all throughout their term. So my charity is called Together We Rise. It's a foundation that helps foster children. Primarily what they do is they put together things like duffel bags, because foster children, when they go from home to home, they take their belongings in trash bags most of the time. So sometimes they have like 5 minutes to just throw everything into a trash bag and leave. So what this foundation does is they put together duffel bags with a teddy bear, a crayon coloring book, a hygiene kit, a blanket, and then the social worker that picks up the child then gives that to the child. And that gives the child something that they can have that's theirs. They have a place to keep their clothes. They have a teddy bear. And so I picked it because it's actually a very kind of social thing, because you can actually purchase the sweet cases from Together We Rise. And they also do other things. This isn't the only thing they do, but I focused on this because I thought it was a great way for PFSA, our members, to become involved, and for us to involve others as well. So we would have events where we actually actually raised $1,500 for the sweet cases at the beginning of the year, and we got together and they send you all the things and you stuff them all, and then you call your local foster workers and they come and pick up the duffel bags. So it helps everybody's individual communities. So obviously, since that's based on getting together, that's kind of been at a halt. And a lot of times at the official visits, the councils will give me money for me to donate towards my charity. So that's kind of stopped as well. And I think between this and I'm also on the board for the Modesto Portuguese Pentecost Association and the Portuguese Education Foundation of Central California. Our activities are so based on, our fundraising activities are based on in-person events. So this whole thing has caused us to kind of pause and realize, how are we going to raise money if we can't all get together? Usually we have a dinner, we have a wine tasting, we have FOB night or something. So I think this is kind of like a time for us maybe to readjust our donation, the ways that we fundraise, making more things possible to donate on Facebook or have a website where you put credit cards, which some of them already do, but just kind of maybe for us to focus on that a little bit more, even going forward in the future when we can get together, so that we're not stuck like this. Should something like this happen again?
And Maria?
Well, so our fundraising is mainly for our scholarship fund. So what we've been doing now is usually we get it from raffle sales during our events. It's now that since we don't have our events, we actually started to post a lot of our books on sale. on our social media, and we'll be putting in our bulletins. So with the proceeds from the sales of these books, it will help with our fundraising.
But just to kind of also give a little bit to the of an answer, just a yes or no. Would everybody agree that we could give this person the answer that fundraising is down for sure in every single? Okay, so it can be 10% or 50%, but it's down for sure. Okay, and my other there's a couple other questions, but one of them is actually from our very good friend, and I can say his name because I don't think he'll mind, which is Professor Duarte Silva, who moderated yesterday's magnificent panel as well. And what was saying, how do we move? And that's something that maybe we can think about for another time, but how do we move forward with the thought that I had put based on what Valeria said? How do we move forward with this combined effort with the Portuguese community, the Brazilian community, the Macaense community, Cape Verde, and other Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, Timor, East Timor, etc., that have immigrants in or first, second, third generation in the United States? How do we become this 1.5 million to 5 million? Because it would be pretty close to that. That's a terrific question. I don't know if this panel, if we can answer this. We have Angela as a national organization. But I think that there's always these things that, we are the Portuguese this, or the Azorean that, or the Madeira this. And so how do you incorporate the whole Portuguese-speaking world, the Lusophone world, which is a name I particularly don't care for. But, it's just one of those things that, and talking because of Lusophone, only because of the idea that a lot of people don't even know what that means. It's just, I was at a meeting, and I've told this before, I was at a meeting, with some academics and other people, and, the academics were talking about the Lusophone, and folks who were not into academia said, what kind of phone is that? And so, but they were very serious. They really were, because it's just, it's not a word, it's not a pretty word, with all due respect. It's very pretty in Portuguese, Lusofonia, but it's not very nice in English. So, the community of Portuguese-speaking language, Portuguese-speaking countries, or whatever, how do we incorporate those into our organizations is something I think we maybe answer at another time, because we need to go to Zé Luís. And the third one was from a university professor at the University of the Azores that is following, and we thank Professor Amaral for following, as well as all of you. And he was saying, how do we use this? And this is more into the Azores, but how do we use this value that we have in the Portuguese American community, the weight of these organizations, of this tradition, of the clout, within our elected officials as well, to benefit the dialogue, and that's a little bit of a political question, obviously, the dialogue between the United States and Europe that has been on a downfall, especially for the last few years, but it's been in a downfall for a longer period of time. So how do we as Portuguese Americans and Brazilian Americans and Macanese Americans with a Portuguese tie-in, how do we build on what we have to make the United States of America and the European transatlantic relationship a little bit better for all of us? I think that's something that maybe we can also address as Joe Luis gives us the last question, because we needed to end this desperately in about 10 minutes or so.
That's not my fault. If I could add just one thing, I think that we're trying to do, bringing together the different Portuguese-speaking peoples would be much more successful if this was also being done much more effectively at the official level of the different countries. Cannot expect the immigrant community to put together what needs to be done. That's my opinion. But we can, however, accomplish a lot among our communities and be very successful for everybody. The last question has to do with youth. Here all the time, our organizations are getting old, are aging, we need new blood. There's a lack of involvement, maybe of enthusiasm of young people in our community and organizations. In other words, the future of our communities. What is your view on this issue of youth involvement, and how can we improve youth participation? Joe.
Yeah, I guess we are privileged with our organization that we strongly promote youth with our performances every year, et cetera. It's a huge community that really gets together and backs the youth and the youth participation, and they have their own administration, et cetera. And they really look forward to it. I mean, so the youth involvement has become huge. You know, we, during our annual convention, you know, we have 1,100 room nights for the one day where the youth is involved. And then it drops down probably to about 500-600. But that's a huge part of our organization and one that we strongly promote between that. And we keep them involved till 18. Once they go to college, as the majority, or those of us that have gone, we kind of move away from that, the Portuguese involvement, especially if it's not easily or readily available at the university level, to where, you know, it's Portuguese social club, et cetera. I know Fresno State is a perfect example. They do have a group there that's very, very strong, but others that do not, obviously the Portuguese shy away. It seems that our youth, I shouldn't say youth, I would like to call them young adults. They come back again to us once they start get married and have children. But getting the youth involvement, we are privileged to have a very, very strong group, and they look forward every single year to continuously be involved at least to that 18, 19-year-old age group. So from the immediate youth perspective, that's what we have. This year, for example, they conducted all the administration, all their business, everything, all via Zoom. Extremely successful. I mean, they did a phenomenal job. And that's an example for probably us older ones that, I mean, I have a privilege with my job to be involved more in this sort of ever communication. But some of our older people adapted very well to it. And like I say, they're instrumental in that information to us and made our job a lot easier. And we learned from them. And I think the key is to learn
Lost it.
and what they like to have.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I think we lost Angela. She's camping, and maybe she had to go.
Angela had to leave. Yes, so if she comes back, fine. But she's had and there's some issues there with the reception.
She probably had to go keep the bears away from a food supply or something like that. She's camping. Corinne.
Yes, well, I was just thinking about that because, as I said before, the majority of our members are elderly, and I mean the majority. Although our festas do bring in younger members because they like to participate in the festas, the queens and kings and that type of events, but we only usually have one a year that's basically for St. Anthony. So to get the younger members in our society has been very, very difficult. Although because of the scholarships, we do have some, but we are kind of at a standstill when it comes to the youth.
Thanks, Corinne. Monique, PFSA.
Well, you know, this is something that, a subject that we've talked about over and over and over again. And not just with PFSA, I'm also in a folklore group and other organizations where we used to have lots of young people and now we don't. PFSA, you know, we're rebuilding our youth program just because the difficulties of our merger kind of, you know, affected our youth program. But I see in general, you know, our youth, they want to be involved. Like they get very excited. If you talk about charity, they're passionate. They love everything. I think the problem is that they're involved in too many things and they just don't have time to be committed in everything that they want to do. I mean, when I was in high school, my mom did not let me do everything I wanted to do because it was just too much. But I think parents of my generation are remembering that, and if my kids want to do everything, I want to help them do whatever they want to do. Unfortunately, there are so many hours in the day, and the kids go to school, and there's so much more pressure in school. There's so much more with the AP classes. There's so much more homework than they ever used to have. They're exhausted, and so if you ask them, you know, let's go to a meeting. Let's, you know, we want you to do X, Y, and Z. They want to do it. They really do. But then when it comes to the time to do X, Y, and Z, they just don't have the time. And you know, I might get a lot of hate for this, but I think parents are also the issue too, because in the old days, if you were the youth president, and this still happens to a lot of extent, but I'm not pointing any one person or anything like that, but I see a lot of parents who are just kind of letting their children sort of go to convention or go, here and there by themselves. They kind of leave it up to them and they don't go with them. And I think that kind of has it affected youth involvement, because then the parents aren't there sort of supporting them and making sure that they go and that they're responsible and kind of leaving it up to them. Whereas if you're a kid, if you want to do something, a responsibility, or you want to do something fun, you're going to do the fun thing, or you're going to stay home if your parents aren't making you. So I think just the view of, I just think that they need more support from our generation in order to make them, just be more involved and appreciate it, because right now they don't understand. It's when they get older that I hear people say, I wish my parents would have taught me to speak Portuguese. I wish my parents would have made me be involved, or they had made me go to the festa. But at this time, it's like, even with my kids, to make them speak Portuguese, they get mad at me. They don't want to. And it's like, they're going to blame me for it later when they're like, why didn't you make me speak Portuguese? Like, trust me, I tried. So.
Thanks, Monique. Denise.
Well, the youth, as far as the California Portuguese American Coalition, is, of course, to get more youth involved in politically. And so that's just a challenge that all organizations that deal in that realm have. Young people, sometimes they're the worst to vote. The age bracket 18 to 30 is just, horrible at voting. And we're hoping that we change that significantly. I think it's a national pattern, and CPAC will have to follow the national pattern as far as that's concerned. I wanted to take just the couple of minutes that I have on that to say that a couple of things. First of all, I think those of us in our 60s and 50s and 70s and whatever, I think sometimes we have to give more space to young people in our boards. And we say, they don't want to be a member. Well, they don't want to be a junior member. And that's part of our problem. Sometimes we want young people, but we want them to be junior members. We want to stay on there. Let's get the heck out. And so that's the first thing. That's my perspective. I mean, that's very blunt, but that's the way I feel. Second of all, I also feel that as far as the youth involvement is concerned, is that they're going to have to do things differently. We did not have any issues on getting any young people involved in our racism and discrimination issues as far as that's concerned, as far as the virtual forums. So if it's something that they know and they feel apt to it, they'll get involved. Okay, I wanted to have a couple of veterans of my generation in the racism, and the only one I got to accept was José Luis da Silva. A lot of the others, it's I don't want to get involved in that, whatever. So we, if we have a panel, just part of the Luso, we have a panel on Tuesday on Portuguese traditions. The bands, the folklore groups that Monique mentioned, and the Carnaval, and we have 12 people. The majority of them are under 40. Okay, so there are young people involved in our community. Sometimes we don't see them because we don't get them involved. A lot of the folklore groups are being led by young people. A lot of the bands are being led by young people. I think that we need to give a little bit more space to the youth, but they will not do what we want them to do. But that's a good thing, because the community, that is one of the issues I have with older people in charge of politics, because how can someone who's 75 or 80 or 70 or whatever deal with issues that have to do with young families? So I think, and you may call it ageism. I don't think it is. I just think that in the Portuguese American community, we have to be cognizant. We have to let young people have these opportunities. They will probably mess up the way we see things, but it's not going to be, if we want to construct the community for the next 20 or 25 years, it's not up to those folks in the late senior years. We need to get more young people. I think we need to be there for support, and sometimes we're not doing that. And I think that I wanted to also mention a little bit of the issue that Professor Amaral mentioned on the relationship, and that is, I think that we in the Portuguese American community need to be a little bit more present in issues to deal with the transatlantic relationships, and our young people know this. Our young people are very, very involved, because we have a great number of young people that are going to college. Jose Luis and my generation, we counted on the fingers of two hands the ones who went to college. But young people now who are graduating at 20 and 25 and 30, the majority of our young people have gone to college. Quite to the contrary, some other communities in some other parts of the United States or Canada. And so let's build on that capital to move that forward. And I lastly wanted to mention what one person did mention on the how do we go from 1.5 to 5 million? Maybe create within our organizations kind of a global Portuguese speaking country organization in the United States that we all come together, not another organization, an organization of all of ours, plus the Brazilians, the Macanenses, the Cape Verdeans and everything else, and become that 5 million. That's not my idea. That was the idea of someone who just wrote it there.
Great, Denise. Thank you. Maria, what's the situation of youth in the Macanese community and how can you improve it?
Well, definitely it's most vital that we strive to get younger members involved to ensure the longevity of the community. This is one of the major objectives in our club that we continue to address. Even though we have the largest youth membership of all the Casas de Macau worldwide, it is always a challenge to integrate participation with our membership. The biannual Macau Youth Encounter trips and the triannual Macau Encounter trips provide a one-of-a-kind experience for our youth to physically connect with their culture. Keeping up with being able to stay connected with our younger generation through social media is a must. Sharing experiences, stories, techniques such as cooking classes and language, patois, Portuguese, Cantonese, Mandarin, between our older and younger members will aid in preserving our culture. And also, as Denise mentioned, which has always been my motto is, you got to give the youth the support and a chance in the leadership role.
Obrigado, Maria. Valeria, what's the situation of Brazilian youth in your community?
Very similar to, well, not very similar. About the festivals and the parties, the festas, whatever we have, they are there. But I think they don't see purpose in what we do. I think our communication to them, it's really failing for many years. So I think because we are still first generation, we think a lot with Brazilian mind that does not apply to United States, and the kids growing here, they see things differently. Anyway, they need to have volunteer work service done when they are in high school to apply for college in the United States. That is not a thing cultural in Brazil. So if we can communicate this purpose, at least when they are in high school, and that's some of the ideas that have been crossing my mind lately, how to get these people in. And so if they see that purpose, that objective, oh, I'm going to use that to go to college. So maybe we can teach the language and we can involve them in working in an activity within the community that will count to their college thing. This is one thing. I think our communication fails miserably to the Brazilians, the young Brazilians. They don't see especially if they are first generation too, when they immigrate with their parents, they still too involved in the culture of Brazil, and we are not able to communicate, hey, we are living abroad, you are too, and we need to do things for the betterment of our communities and engage in political activities, in support activities, and you should be doing that. So I think this is a major issue here. About what someone said to have this encompass all the communities, and I think it was Professor Duarte Silva, we were very welcome into the Portuguese community here and with you guys, Denise and José Luis mainly, but Eduardo Eusébio, Deolinda, and everybody else. You always had open doors and open hearts to us. So we came and felt welcome, then continued collaborating, and we go back and forth in between both communities. That's not true to many others. In several different locations, there's still the Brazilians and the Portuguese, even if we share like me, I'm my 50% Portuguese blood, so I feel halfway there. But we should have a dialogue because we have so many in common in so many aspects. And I would suggest that a starting point would be talking to the language teachers. Okay, let's put once and for all, this is one language, stop the division. So from there, we can get the youth working together, seeing that we can do better. Look what the Portuguese are doing. They are organized, we are not. Okay, good, so let's work together. And also the community of academics and scholars and everybody that are getting together badly in other locations can work as we are doing. So I suggest the first step would be, let's show them everywhere, Portuguese and Brazilian and Macaenses and Cape Verdeans communities everywhere, how we are doing things, that we are integrating here in California, and it is working fine. And we are seeing each other and seeing what we are doing and modifying our ways of doing things in that way. And that could be a first step to reach that. We all know it's not going to be overnight, but I think it's doable, and we can do that for the future generation and include them, and then we'll take over from us.
Obrigado, Valeria. Unless Denise has any more questions for the panel, that concludes our discussion. I would like to say a couple of things before we go. First of all, I'm very, very impressed with the members of this panel, the richness, the variety, the depth of their thoughts. I think we discussed here things that are vital to the present and even more to the future of our community. I'd like to thank you all that participated. I also would like to thank all of you in places that I don't even know where, but all over the place, who are watching and listening to this. It's an honor for us that you have been participating in it. Again, thank you to everybody in the panel, and thank you to all the audience.
Thank you, José Luis. Thank you so much. I have a couple of things that there was one question that I'll ask that I think our chairperson will address at the end, and I'll ask him, which is it has to do with scholarships, and I think everybody's probably about the same way. So we'll have Eduardo Eusébio answer that question. I wanted to, a little bit of, on behalf of the chairperson of this conference, I want to thank you as well. And thank you, José Luis, for the excellent work as always moderating. And thanks to all of you. Yesterday, we'll find out today, but yesterday we had over 2,000 views on YouTube. I'm sorry, on Facebook. And we've had hundreds of people look at it at YouTube as well, because it will be posted, this one as well, in the evening. And we had José Manuel Dias had also hundreds of people follow on Televisão Portuguesa of California. We've had over anywhere between at the low rates 29 and the high rates 45 participants, because some had to come and go. Here on webinar, so it's a different way to do this. I recall, someone was telling me yesterday offline that hey, it's kind of hard. How do we get people to participate? But it's not a question building they will come, but this is a way that young people can also participate, and people all over the state. And I've been, and not too as many as Eduardo Eusébio. I mean, in kind of biblical terms. He's Moses, of the Luso-American Education Foundation Conference. I'm kind of already like, past Jesus. But, he is, the idea is that, I've been at conferences, okay, where there's been 2 panelists and 3 people in the audience. Okay, because we have like multiple things going on, and so I've been at a conference like that. So this is Monique says me too, and so the idea is that we need to. This is a different forum. It may not be comfortable for everyone. Those of us who are pushing present things may want to go back. My perspective is, as I mentioned to, and I mentioned to Anthony Pio, who I thank so much for all of his work, because he's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And Anthony have talked consistently in the last week or so. And I think the future, just as Joe said, the future is going to be different. I think future conferences must have an online presence, or we can never go back to the same conference that we did in 2019. I don't think that that's even viable. So thank you all. I want to make a little bit of a programming note, as we say it in the broadcast business, and that is that tomorrow we switch to 6 o'clock to give people the opportunity to get home. And it also is a good time because we've had lots of people interest from the East Coast. It's 9 o'clock at the East Coast. Same time zone for our friends in British Columbia, who a few of them have told me that are following along, and 2 hours early for our friends in Hawaii, who are very interested. And a few people from the cultural groups that are following along as well. Not as good for mainland Portugal, which is 2 o'clock in the morning. And not as good for the Azores. Well, just pretend it's São Joaninish time for my Azorean friends. You don't go to bed until 5 o'clock anyway, so just pretend it's São Joaninish. And grab yourself a few beers and, join the conference. The same thing in mainland Portugal. Pretend it's a festa for one of the Santos Populares, or pretend you're in Algarve on férias, like someone I know, and stay up until 4 in the morning. And so the idea is that tomorrow's at 6 o'clock, and we have 12 halls participating. I'm very proud of that, to be honest with you. I'm a proud peacock with 12 halls because I think it's fantastic. All the way from San Diego, Artesia, Tulare, Selma. Let me see if I remember all of them. Modesto, Union Cities, Alvarado, San Pablo, Newark, Santa Clara, Ferndale, Sacramento, and I'm forgetting one. I knew I would, but anyway, there's 12 of them. You'll see them tomorrow. So we have 12 halls. There's a couple of invitation outs to other. We try to be a little bit geographical, so I don't want just 12 halls from the valley, obviously. But there's a couple of invitations that we're waiting, so it might be 13 or 14. But we'll discuss what we've discussed here today at a hall level, because I think a lot of these halls are kind of looking at themselves. How are we going to be, a year from now? So I think, and there's such a strong patrimony of the Portuguese presence in California. I mean, as far as, financial wealth, just the property that some of them own, where they're located, their history of 100 years. Most of them are either reaching 100 years or have done 100 years already. And so I think we owe them. And tomorrow we have planned between 6 and 8:30, so a 2.5-hour discussion on the halls itself. On Tuesday, it's the Portuguese bands and the Portuguese folklore groups and the Carnaval. We have 11 young people so far, with 2 others that will be telling. On Wednesday, we have the Portuguese language, and we have policymakers. We have Portuguese language teachers from Portuguese Community School represented. We have our very good friend Renato Alvim, Portuguese professor at Stanislaus, representing the Brazilian community. And so we will have a strong participation of that, and that will be done by Professor Duarte Silva. Then Thursday, Portuguese language writers, and not only Portuguese language writers of the Portuguese diaspora. And again, we have 12 invited. Most of them have said yes, and a couple of them are thinking. And then on Thursday, we have the Portuguese media experience with the panel again of 8 people as well. And lots of young people in all of these, and then we will end it on Saturday. So thank you all. Thank you, panel, very much. Just a little bit of programming note for all of you. Hopefully you'll be with us on if you can. And if you can't, it's going to be archived on YouTube. I want to thank again all of our sponsors, the Luso Financial, the Fundação Luso-Americana para o Desenvolvimento FLAD, the government of the Autonomous Region of the Azores, and also it would be rude on my part not to thank Fresno State and PVBI, which I direct. Obviously, we don't need thanks, but the Fresno State University putting forth all of the Zoom experience that they have for the Luso American Education Foundation Conference. And again, a big shout out to Fresno State President Joseph Castro. We are elated with this, my friends, that he has just been chosen to be the chancellor for the entire CSU system in California. He has a very strong connection with the Portuguese American community, including his wife, who is of Azorean ancestry. And so it will be great to have a champion for the Portuguese American community at such a strong university system. The University of California, or the California State University system, has over or right around 500,000 students. Many of our students, many of our children have attended or will attend the CSU system. So thank you all so much. And on the last word will be coming from Eduardo Eusebio, the young man on the panel.
Well, thank you, Denise, and thank you for being the young man in the family. I'm always the youngest 70-year-old, So first of all, I'd like to thank the panelists. That's what makes, how do we have almost half a century of conferences yearly, one after the other? It's very difficult, but we do it. Why? Because of strong panelists and strong leadership from Denise, from Zé Luis da Silva, and the participation of Joe, Angela, Corinne, Monique, Denise, Maria, and Valeria. Thank you very much. I was particularly impressed with Monique's Disneyland picture in the back. I'm sorry, I was interested. When Steve Ricks, the guy that travels everywhere, says, describes Sintra, he said, well, Disneyland of Portugal? Okay. So, very nice. So this is how we do it. And of course, with strong support, with unconditional support from the Luso American Financial, which, by the way, changed names through the years since the first conference in 1977. And you mentioned, but let me mention again, the people in the background, Anthony P., we thank him for all the good stuff that he does and working specifically at this conference. We certainly like to thank Anthony Pio for this, and of course I need to mention it again. I know you did. Flad has been with us. Governo Regional dos Açores, practically from the beginning. Fresno State, Portuguese Beyond Borders, and Radio and TV Pro Portuguese with Joe Manuel Diaz. Without all our support, without all of this, we wouldn't have all of these conferences. And the most difficult part for me is to sit over here and want to get engaged. I think I have an answer for that. Maybe not. But if you follow the program, if you participate tomorrow and about the halls, you will have some interesting ideas what some halls are doing at these days, like with take home drive-through festa, drive-through dinners. We had, for example, at San Pablo Holy Ghost last night, a drive-through dinner. Usually we have 100 people at the dinner. Last time we almost had 200 people that came in and pick up their food. And that's how we do our fundraiser. So that was kind of an interesting, and by the way, we do have a very young group of people there. Without that, and without further ado, like Nuno said yesterday, he talked about pastéis de nata. It's about time for have a pastel de nata right now. And thank you for your participation, and see you throughout the week. Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, everybody.
Don't go yet, Eduardo. One very quick question. One very quick question, because I think this person asked a question I think deserves an answer. And maybe some of you who give out scholarships can add that to that if you want to. To those organizations that give out scholarships, and obviously Luso does, yes. How has the pandemic affected the amount of the number of scholarships that have been given out or will be given out?
Well,
we answer that question real quick, because I think it's a pertinent question.
I'll do very, very quickly. As you know, most of our fundraising is done through the convention and with the court contest. This year, we did not have a convention at the Luso American Virtual Federation, but we had a court contest, and fundraisers did take place. Obviously, it's going to be affected, but we right now we don't see that we have any less scholarships than we did last year. Fortunately, the foundation will have an opportunity to talk about that, I believe, on
Saturday.
Saturday. So I don't want to take any time right now how we evolved to what we are right now. Fortunately, we're in a position to continue the scholarship program, and we didn't feel a pinch so much this year, but I don't know about next year. I don't know about this pandemic thing. Now, you mentioned Algarve. I just came from Algarve about 72 hours ago. It's kind of different how people look at the pandemic and not at here. Obviously, not obviously, the restaurants were full, period. The bars were full. Well, that's why they have a surge of more people with COVID. But they seem to think that, life needs to go on. I'm not advocating that, but that's what I saw. And I was lucky to get away alive, I suppose. Anyway.
So it
didn't
affect it this year that much?
Yes. Okay. So with that, I thank you.
Okay, but yes, one second, Eduardo. How about Corinne? Does it affect the Brotherhood?
Not this year. We were able to give out 4 scholarships as usual, so that was great.
Okay. And Monique?
It shouldn't affect us this year. We have enough of a reserve in PFSA that we'll be able to give out the same number again.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you all so much. Appreciate it. And have a wonderful Sunday. And we'll continue talking about the conference. Thank you for your contributions. Take care, everyone. Stay
you.
safe,
Thank you.
stay healthy.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Muito boa tarde.
Thank you.
Boa tarde. Boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
Deusinho. Boa tarde.